Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Hope the Sparkster community is doing fantastic on this Friday. We're really excited to be here with you and to update you on some of the more technical aspects of our project and have this tech AMA.
Good
So,
afternoon. I'll just jump in. Good
yeah, sure,
afternoon.
sure,
Good
please,
morning,
yeah.
good evening. Good to see everyone, and glad to be here. Go ahead, Shabir.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll try to keep this crisp and concise and then try to deliver as much value as we can in this time. So one question that a lot of you may have, and we've been kind of monitoring some of the questions, our admins have been very helpful in helping to get the questions from the community, and they've helped to get us a list of those questions. So we'll get to that in a moment. But I think a burning question that you guys may have is about where are we in terms of, for example, some of the marketing things that we're working on, such as partnerships and working with the various different exchanges and on that pipeline. Where are we on that front? And so there's a couple of points that I wanted to bring up there with respect to where we are on these partnerships. So one point that I do want to bring up is, the seriousness with which these exchanges or these potential collaborators have approached these conversations and these discussions with us. And that's something that I really wanted to convey to you that has led us to make these decisions that we have. And I don't know if our community has as much insight into this, and I'll try to share as much as I can about how valuable this partnership or these potential partnerships are for our potential collaborators. And this is why this conversation has been taken so seriously, we believe, by them. The nature of the conversation that we're having with them is our platform enables them to get tremendous volume on their exchanges, which is really, really something that they're intrigued by. And the way it does that is through increasing trading frequency per user. And this really helps us get into this ecosystem at a really, really vast capacity, if you will. And what that ultimately does is, with commissions and other factors that come in, this really makes the nature of the partnership very intriguing and interesting on both sides. And that's why we believe in good faith that these collaborators have come to the table and taken this conversation very seriously in order to move forward in that. So we're getting further and more advanced in those conversations. And like we've said before as well, that's why we set a certain deadline and a time frame in terms of how long we on our end will allow these conversations to continue until. That's that 1 month term that we took, and we don't have intention to drag that on any further. But right now, the conversations are continuing and they are progressing along, and we are mindful of our deadline on that front. So that's really where we stand on that front. So I hope that gives you some insight and some clarity with respect to where we are there. And we hope to update you as we get more information with respect to that on the other side.
So just to add to what you're saying, Shabir, I think that when you can, our objective at all times is to approach our partnerships and conversations with partners or potential partners in from the perspective of what value can we bring to them, right? And what's really clear in this particular case is that what we're bringing to the exchanges is an increase in revenue. So you talked about an increase in trading volume, and you talked about increasing in frequency of trades per user. But ultimately, what that really boils down to is we help the exchanges make more money, right? And so whenever you go to a partner or a potential partner and you say, look, we have this technology that we want to integrate to help you make more money, it's a much easier conversation to have. There's a lot more interest, right? And so, as we mentioned, we are talking to people at the top of the organizations, the senior members of the team. So it's encouraging that, like Shabir mentioned, that they're approaching this with a level of seriousness that we find very encouraging. So, we can't tell you a whole lot. As you might imagine, maybe Shabir, you can shed some light on why why the exchanges prefer this sort of discretion, if you will. What's the reason behind that?
Sure, absolutely. So I've been having a lot of these conversations with the respective exchanges, and one theme that seems to come up quite frequently, especially when you're talking to exchanges of a higher caliber, or higher tier, is exclusivity. They really want to be the first to the table, and that's really what they pride themselves on. And that's really something that they're not really willing to budge on, because that's really what gives them, their clout, and that gives them their strength in the space. And so, in terms of those aspects, they would require from us and demand from us a level of exclusivity. Now, from our vantage point, we have to make the decision then that's most prudent for us and the community at large and in their best interest. So we don't compromise on that aspect of it. But nonetheless, they want to make sure that they are exclusive. A lot of these exchanges that I've talked to, they have requested and they've essentially demanded exclusivity clause or something to that effect, and that's where a lot of the negotiations come into. And so jumping the gun is something that we have to be very, very careful about, especially as we're operating in this space. So that's really where it comes down to, especially when you're dealing with the top ones.
Yeah, I mean, I can appreciate that members of the community are dying to know more about the details here, right?
Right.
You, you know, fulfilling that need that you may have, or addressing that desire you may have, would put our discussions at risk, would put our discussions at jeopardy, right? So you got to understand that we're doing what's prudent in everybody's best interests here. So, like we said, we're going to take this month to get these negotiations and these discussions completed, and then we will talk about what the future holds. But like I said, it's important that we have this month. So some people are wondering, are we planning to unlock in May? No, we can't unlock in May because we're giving ourselves the month of May to have these discussions, and that's kind of what I'm alluding to, right? That it's important that we get these discussions completed, or as complete as we possibly can, and figure out kind of where are we going from here. But we don't want this to be an endless ongoing thing. So we've set a time limit on this, as we've talked about in the past, which is a month. So what I do want to jump into is I want to talk about the product release. There's been some questions about that. What's the deal with the bugs with the product release? So really, I want to focus our AMA today on kind of the technical aspects, and kind of where we are with the product release. So whenever we've released the platform is absolutely enormous. What looks simple to you consists of more than 200 individual components, more than 200 containers, which are components of an application. And what we've experienced in this kind of deployment, so naturally you're in development, when you deploy something, things are different, right? You have kind of a new bunch of experiences or new bunch of issues that show up at deployment time. You have specific people that deal with these sorts of things. They're called DevOps people. But specifically, the issues that we've been experiencing is between the security from one container to another. So naturally, we've got high security implemented on each of our components. And what we're finding is that some of these components aren't playing well with one another. And the security aspects of these components are clashing with one another. That's caused some issues. That doesn't necessarily mean that there's an underlying issue with the product itself or the platform itself. It's just that we've got some teething things to work through in the actual deployment itself. So the team is busy at work, kind of addressing those, looking at each of those individual components and figuring out why is one clashing with another and so forth, so we can resolve those issues, if you will. But these are anyone in software development will understand that in a large and broad deployment like this, these sorts of issues are expected. It's kind of part of the process. The next question I have is, on the decentralized cloud, how many nodes are needed to verify a transaction? So there are 21 verifiers that are needed for any transaction, and there are 21 master nodes that are needed for any transaction. How will I know that these nodes actually have my files? So that's an interesting question. So what you'll be able to do is browse the Explorer and browse, the essentially the documents and the files that exist on the network. So you can kind of go to Explorer at Sparkster Network, and you can see that you can create documents and such. Coming out soon, you'll be able to actually look at and reference and browse documents and kind of look at what data is there. So that's how you'll be able to see it. But you can today on Explorer.Sparkster Network create your own documents, and you can, using functions, you can interact with those documents and you can persist data inside of those documents. So we're going to be releasing a demo closer to the unlock, because I think it's something that we're quite excited about. So closer to unlock, we'll be releasing a demo that kind of shows this sort of interaction in a specific use case. There are some performance issues coming from the no-code platform. Why are we having performance issues? So these are not performance issues. These are issues resulting, like I said, from communication that's being obstructed by security by the different components. Naturally, as you can imagine, in our space, high security is critical. So it's not like we could launch the platform the way that we use it internally in the development sort of environment. It's got to be launched with high security at every tier, every level, between every component, right? And sometimes you get clashes that are hard to foresee. So some communities want to understand exactly how and why the exchanges will want to use the Sparkster no-code platform and our decentralized cloud. So I think Shabir's kind of touched on that, right? He's talked about, essentially we're talking about using our tools to help them make more money. We can't go into more detail yet, but we hope to at unlock time, right? Can the no-code platform be used for issuing tokens on the blockchain without any code? Yes, absolutely. So that's the intention of why we've got on our roadmap that we're looking at integrating other chains, is because one of the benefits that we have from integrating other chains is that you can indeed create tokens and such. And I believe if you go to our YouTube channel and you click on demos, one of the demos actually demonstrates this, where we're showing how in the no-code environment you can build, you can actually do a token release and configure a token. I believe it's on the Ethereum network, if I'm not mistaken, but there is a demo that's shown there in our YouTube channel. Can we disclose the industries that we're working on, and essentially, what's our focus? I think the next question kind of talks about this too. What's the target market for our business development? So, what really makes sense is for us to use our resources to be able to attack an industry where we can solve problems both with our no-code tool as well as our decentralized cloud. And the industry that we've been heavily focused on, an industry you've heard me talk extensively about, is the IoT industry. It's the industry that we spend a lot of time focusing on. It's the industry that we're reaching out to in this sort of relationships and collaborations and discussions. You'll notice that we're partnered with Labellium, and you'll see that if you go to Labellium's marketplace, that we are in fact selling kits on Labellium's marketplace that interact with our no-code platform. So a lot of our focus is in the IoT space. If you look at our demo that we did for the ARM TechCon that was in October, that was an IoT-centric, heavy IoT sort of demonstration that kind of touches at the heart of one of the projects that we're looking at with ARM, one of our major partners. So our focus really is IoT. We see IoT as being much, much further along in mainstream adoption than blockchain is today. So, most major companies have a team of people that are working on implementing IoT within the organization. It's not an area of research, it's an area of implementation. It's an area of, an area where they've got people that are actually working on bringing IoT to their products, to their services, looking at how they might use IoT to improve their efficiencies, to deliver new services, to existing customers, how to reduce costs in the delivery of their existing services, and so forth. So, as you know, from the very beginning, we've been focused heavily on mainstream adoption and how we might be able to bring mainstream adoption to the masses. And we think that the way that we can couple the technology that we're building and have built with the requirements of industry is specifically in IoT. And kind of all of the discussions and collaborations that we're having, except what we're talking about with the exchanges. We're not talking about IoT with the exchanges. Other than that, everything else is really IoT focused. All right. Do you want to take the next questions, Shabir?
Sure. So next question, I see, at what point the team is on the discussion with the exchanges, meaning are you finalizing deals or just convincing the exchange party? Okay, great question. So different exchanges are at different stages in the process or in the pipeline, as you can probably appreciate. But what I can say, I guess, is we're really excited about one major exchange that we're pretty excited and expect them to close a deal with us on that. So more on that, stay tuned. So next question I see here is, will listing happen on a single exchange or multiple exchanges? How many trading pairs are possible on each exchange, Spark? Okay. So we're going to be announcing this closer to listing. And I've kind of shed light on this previously, as you can appreciate. Exclusivity is a big factor for these exchanges, and commenting on this would perhaps jeopardize and actually impact that conversation. So please do stay tuned. We're going to mention more about this closer to listing. And what else do we have? Do you know if the next tutorials will be released this week?
Yeah, let me grab that. So the team is obviously, the team's priority is resolving these security challenges. Once that's done, we'll have the video released. So the team is obviously involved in creating the videos, and therefore putting the time in the video takes away from time that they need to work on the security challenges and so forth. All right. Any other thoughts that you want to share, Shabir? Anything else that you want to communicate to the community?
Definitely. I really am thankful and grateful and appreciative to our community for being supportive of us in this time. And we understand that I can speak to the fact that I can totally empathize with the fact that you may not be getting a lot of the details that we would like to give you, we would love to give you, but we just, at this junction of our conversation, we're not at liberty to convey those. But rest assured, we're making every decision in the best interest of our community and the company at large in order to deliver the most value as possible. And I do appreciate your cooperation and patience in this time. I'm extremely appreciative of our admins who we met with and we had a meeting with earlier this week, who've given their thoughts and helped a lot, and they're conveying your ideas. So rest assured, we're aware of your concerns, considerations. We've been trying to jump into the chat from time to time, myself and Saj, to try to make those communication channels. From our vantage point, from our end, we have so many different things going on our plate, but we're still trying to be, and we pride ourselves on being one of the most communicative projects in this entire space. We try not to skimp on that at all, and nonetheless appreciate it, and really would try to, as we get towards this next junction and towards the closing and towards listing, I'd really implore yourself and myself and all of us to come together to really unite and bring everything together so we can get this going and spark up the enthusiasm at this time.
Absolutely. Thank you everybody for your support. I know that it's a difficult time, but like we've always maintained, we truly believe this is in the best interest of the community, and that's fundamentally why we're going through this process. Hopefully today has kind of connected the dots for everybody and enables you guys to see the value in these discussions and kind of where we are. And we hope to have some good news to report in a few weeks. Talk to you guys soon. Thank you, everybody, and have a lovely weekend.
Take care. Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Bye.